Welcome back to Cura Medicina with Derek. That's me. I'm really excited to bring you this drop of the book, chapter 2. This is the preparation. This is really where we start to dig into the ceremonial preparation, and you get a feeling for what's coming up, and you really it'll help you to ease into the right state of mind and help you. If you haven't chosen a ceremony, it'll help you choose the right ceremony. And I talk about teachers and places and the environment and all that good stuff. So this is really a great chapter. This is probably one of the most important chapters of the book in your preparation. We're going to talk about choosing the right set and setting, choosing the right shaman or facilitator, preparing yourself for the ceremony, the importance of the dieta, which is super important. A lot of people I know don't really follow the dieta, and they just kind of go in willy nilly. And the more you can prepare for your ceremony, really, the with an open heart, a clean body, a clean vessel, ayahuasca is going to embrace you in such a more loving way. And if you don't follow the dieta, she might be hard on you. So the dieta is super important. So we talk about um, dietary guidelines, avoiding stimulants. As you can imagine, that's coffee, alcohol, weed, all that stuff. Doing a digital detox is super important because the energy that you surround yourself with, and especially the day before the ceremony and the day of the ceremony, you should get off social media. You should surround yourself with good friends. I always like to take a walk in nature and just be in my thoughts. Talk about social preparations, psychological preparations, a dream journal. I always have the most amazing dreams right before ceremony, either the night before or 2, 3 nights. So paying attention to your dreams in this space and this time frame is really important and can be a great teacher. I talk about yoga and mindfulness and getting emotional support, from your partner and friends, and just being surrounded by as much love as you can. So here we go. Let's get into chapter 2. Ouch, ouch.
Chapter 2: Preparation. It is important to understand that one is not ingesting a liquid. One is ingesting the spirit of the plant. One then acquires the mariri, protection and healing, and one advances spiritually. With the plants, the process of spiritual advancement is accelerated. The shaman and ayahuasca. Don Jose Campos, Geraldine Overton, Charles Grob, and Alberto Roman. While you might be raring to go and ready to have your first ever transformational meeting with the vine, there are a few things to keep in mind. Since this is a psychedelic brew that has been a part of different cultures in the Amazon for a long time, it's important to understand how these ceremonies are conducted traditionally. This will give you a sense of what to expect when you finally participate in the ceremony. Even more important is to understand that many of the experiences we're about to have in the upcoming ceremony are deeply spiritual. The vine itself is considered to have sacred properties. It's safe to say that most of us aren't adequately prepared for the experience we're about to have, because we're not rooted in the same environment as most of the original communities in the Amazon. As with any psychedelic, ayahuasca also places great importance on set and setting. This means that our experience will be influenced by both our environment social, cultural, physical, and our personality and mood at the time of the ceremony. Therefore, we need to prepare ourselves for the experience beforehand. Before we begin discussing the different preparations we need for the ceremony, let's discuss the environment in which we want to participate in the experience. Choosing the right environment for the ceremony. In the previous chapters, we've discussed how the West has adopted the traditional ayahuasca ceremonies differently. While some of these retreats like to keep the ceremonies as close as possible to the original ones, others put their spin on it, or modify certain aspects to suit their audience. Both styles can offer wonderful experiences. As I mentioned, try a few teachers before committing to any tradition or group. When discussing traditional ceremonies held in Amazonian cultures, we have too many differences to treat them all as one. Not only are the leaders or guides of these ceremonies given different names, but they also have different roles, depending on where the ceremony is being held. Research beforehand is a good idea if you're going to Peru or Brazil for your ayahuasca experience. Ideally, you will be able to speak with someone who has been to a specific retreat center or has sat in a ceremony with a particular group. First-hand experience from someone you trust is always the best form of recommendation. If you're attending a ceremony in the West, you might have concerns regarding their legitimacy or intent. Again, find someone you trust to recommend your first experience, or ask a friend to join you on the journey. A friend can offer a sounding board as you research various teachers or retreat centers. When I returned to ayahuasca after a decade-long absence, I asked my childhood friend Clark to join me. We both researched retreat centers together and selected the right teacher and location for both of us. His support and advice were crucial in making the right decisions on that initial internal voyage. Let's first understand the three broad categories that these ceremonies fall into. Religious sessions. Some churches use ayahuasca for religious purposes. Most of these churches have their roots in Brazil, and the most important ones are Barquinha, Santo Daime, and União do Vegetal. The rituals in these churches vary according to the church, but their members usually take ayahuasca 2 to 4 times each month. There are strict rules regarding how one should behave during these sessions. While these ceremonies are predominantly religious, there is room for spiritual and philosophical work. Of course, this depends on the religious leader leading the session. Shamanic ceremonies. The original ayahuasca ceremonies were almost exclusively shamanic. This means some guides led the participants on a spiritual journey and had a very important role in these ceremonies. For example, there are curanderos, also known as healers or vegetalismos, who knew the sacred knowledge contained in plants. Traditionally, these guides needed to be immersed in indigenous knowledge and rituals to conduct these ceremonies. During the ceremony, they would blow tobacco smoke on participants, cleanse the space, and lead the participants using music or singing. The instruments and music differ according to the country the session takes place in. Usually, the shamans also have assistants who help the initiates with various issues they might face during the sessions. Even today, many places try to stay true to their roots and perform these sessions with as much authenticity as possible. Many people have trained under these guides in the West and now perform these ceremonies themselves. They are known among some groups as neo-shamans, but this is a misleading word. For me, there is nothing neo about these teachers. They are shamans through and through. Most of these ceremonies are deeply spiritual. Even though healing can be an essential part of these experiences, the main aim is usually to have mystical encounters or get closer to the divine source in whatever form that might manifest for us. Therapeutic sessions. These sessions are usually held in Western settings and are a result of the growing number of studies that have been conducted on the therapeutic properties of psychedelics. Needless to say, these sessions should only be held at legitimate facilities where there's a certified therapist present. Also, it's the norm for such sessions to have proper preparation and integration phases for the participants. How these sessions play out depends on the therapist conducting them. They usually pay special attention to the setting in these cases, which means you might have the option of listening to soothing music or staying in a room that has been carefully decorated to ease your mind. There are many things to remember while holding these sessions, especially since the participants might already suffer from certain mental conditions, such as depression or anxiety. Even those who are otherwise psychologically healthy might take part to understand themselves better and improve their quality of life. There are some other things to keep in mind. Since most religious churches belong to a close-knit community, one can expect that those who regularly participate in these experiences might be taken care of afterward. In shamanic sessions, too, there might be an element of integration, though it might not be as structured as in therapeutic settings. Again, it's essential to understand the context of where these sessions are taking place. The intention with which you participate in them is extremely important, but you still need to be open to whatever you might experience along the way. There are religious ceremonies that might also be deeply spiritual. Similarly, a therapeutic experience might occur alongside a mystical one. Your experience with the medicine will likely change with time. My experience started therapeutically and has morphed towards spirituality. Now that we have a general idea of the different sessions, let's go through some other points you need to remember before choosing a retreat or ceremony for yourself. Place. You must decide between the many centers across South America and the West. There are several factors to consider when deciding which place is appropriate for you. Some people believe they can only have true ayahuasca experiences in their origin. There are two concerns here. One, not all of us have the time or resources to fly to another country and stay there for an extended period. Two, since there has been an exponential growth in the number of people seeking the vine, there's no reason to believe that all the centers there will be legitimate and honest. There might be a greater chance of falling for tricks in the name of authenticity. This doesn't mean you shouldn't go, just that you should do your due diligence in the same way as you would anywhere else. Another thing to consider is the cultural and linguistic differences. You might feel a little nervous if you're going for your first ayahuasca experience. This is to be expected. Most good centers understand this and will take care of their participants. However, if you want a rawer experience and work with shamans in smaller communities, you have to be prepared because they might not communicate with you as quickly as in the West. There's no right or wrong choice here. The only thing to understand is that your setting matters, and your chosen place is vital. Some other questions should inform your decision. Are you particularly interested in an experience with an indigenous person, or would a well-trained Westerner do? Some neo-shamans are exceptional at what they do, and they are very keen on keeping the ceremonies as authentic as possible. Are you looking for a primarily religious, shamanic, or therapeutic experience? Remember that each of these ceremonies will be very different from one another, especially when it comes to religious ceremonies. You might find them a bit more unsettling and strange if you don't have any religious context for them. This doesn't mean you can't try them out, but you should have some idea before going in. Again, these sessions will have undertones of other types of sessions, but you must consider your primary intention when attending them. What is your level of participation in these ceremonies? Some people, especially first-timers, may want to observe the shaman doing their work, while others find it more effective if they are an active part of the sessions. Would you prefer the shaman to lead in singing, dancing, and other rituals? Or would you also want to participate? This is also connected to the kind of group you're part of. Would you want to be part of a vast or smaller group? How intimate would you want the ceremony to be? Keeping in mind that more co-participants might put your mind at ease. Are you particular about certain things related to the ceremony space? For example, do you want to be in a place that allows you to sleep over and rest after the ceremony, but isn't necessarily luxurious? Or would you prefer a retreat that has more amenities and resembles a resort? Also, would you prefer that the ceremony be held indoors in a specific room? Or would you rather be outdoors? Is it important for you to be connected at all times, either by being in a proper city or having access to the internet? Or would you rather be in a remote location that is cut off from the hustle and bustle of daily life? Some of these questions might seem trivial or even superficial, especially considering that you're looking for a spiritual rendezvous with a sacred plant. However, these things might matter more to you after the ceremony. For example, if you're someone who usually suffers from trust issues because of specific heartbreaking and dangerous experiences you've had in the past, you might be worried about the level of vulnerability you reach during these sessions. Knowing that you have a secure, private room waiting for you instead of a more public sleeping arrangement might help you to be calmer during the experience. Be honest with yourself, and don't worry about your choice. However many people sit with you for the ceremony, you will have a unique experience. Always keep that in mind when making your decisions. Your decision will be the right one you need at that very moment. Source is here to support us. We are served exactly what we need every moment to help raise our vibration. Person. I have used the word person instead of shaman or therapist because the name, as well as the role of the facilitators, changes depending on the kind of session and its context. This guide is a very important part of your journey and can decide how the ceremony goes for you. If there's anyone you are placing your trust in, it's them. Trust your intuition and follow the recommendations we mentioned earlier. These are some questions you should consider. What is the background of the shaman? Where do they come from? What are their beliefs and cultures? And how long have they been doing this work? All of these things will influence how they perform a session. If you're working with a therapist, you should still be sure of their credentials and approvals for working with ayahuasca in therapy. This is especially important if you go to these ceremonies to get help with depression or PTSD. Is the shaman trained? If so, how and by whom? You might think this doesn't make sense. But again, there have been instances where people conduct ceremonies without sufficient knowledge regarding the work that needs to be done for support and guidance. Some people only administer the medicine and step in when needed. This might work for a participant who has experience with many ceremonies, but even then, it's not advisable. There's a reason that shamans perform a lot of labor during the ceremonies. The singing, dancing, and other rituals aren't for show. When your guide is deeply involved with you in the process, it makes you feel safe and cared for, and affects the quality of your experience. What is in your brew? When dealing with a psychoactive substance, it's essential to know how much of it you'll be taking, what goes into your drink, and how strong it is. One of the things about ayahuasca is that its effects are not extremely long-lasting, but you will still need to know if the decoction is extremely strong. Another thing to remember is that some ceremonies use other substances, such as kambo, tobacco, or rapeseed to facilitate the process. This doesn't mean there's anything suspicious about it. Many traditional ceremonies use them regularly. What's important is that you should be aware of this. The same goes for the process of administering these drinks. Do you have to take everything that is offered to you? Do you have a say in it? Or do you have to surrender yourself to the process completely? Is it a one-time administration, or are there multiple rounds throughout the ceremony? How does the shaman work? Do other healing or spiritual methods work together with the ceremony? For example, some shamans also work as healers and have experience using limpia therapy or Reiki to help the participants during the session. Limpia therapy is a spiritual cleansing technique where the healer tries to remove the negative energy or toxicity that might be stored in the participant. They usually do this through a massage. Reiki is a Japanese form of energy healing, where the healer uses their hands to transfer positive energy to the patient. This way, they free them from any concerns, anxieties, or other issues plaguing them. While these are beautiful alternative therapy methods, some people might want something other than that level of involvement their first time. Others might see it as proof that they will get a well-rounded experience. What is the level of engagement between the participants and the facilitators? Some centers may want to avoid anxious people hounding them before the ceremony has even begun, but there should be a channel of communication established beforehand. Can participants ask questions and meet the healer before or after the session? Are there enough assistants to take care of you during and after the experience? This is especially important to consider. While there are traditional ceremonies where the movement of participants might be less restricted, it's crucial to understand that these ceremonies are part of their culture and daily lives. This is not the case for most of us. So, we want to ensure that we are in good hands even after the ceremony. What are the criteria for working with people with prior medical or psychological concerns? Some people expect to find relief from chronic pain, anxiety, depression, and even pain related to cancer. Some suffer from chronic heart conditions or hypertension. While they might find relief through these ceremonies, there is also a concern regarding how these issues might affect or be affected by the ceremony itself. So, they'll want to find a therapist who works with these conditions. In any case, you need to inform them about your medical history. Specific centers might not accept you based on your condition, but quite a few will. Finding a safe space for yourself in any situation is vital. Some other things to ask about regarding the ceremony include: what do you need to bring for the ceremony? What are the preparations you must do before it takes place? What does the integration process look like? In a later chapter, we'll discuss the integration process in greater detail. But in general, this process helps you make sense of the experience you've just had. While there's no one way this experience will play out for everyone, there are specific methods by which we can come out of the experience feeling supported and encouraged in our healing or spiritual journey. Also, inquire about the referral process if you want to direct other people to the facility. Remember that ayahuasca is still banned and illegal in many parts of the world. While exceptions are made for religious and therapeutic purposes, you must ensure your experience is as discreet as possible. When facilities advertise their services or have testimonials from customers under their original names, think twice about the legal aspects of such operations. Before we move on to our preparation for the ceremony, one last thing to remember is that the best places are transparent and objective when providing information. Taking ayahuasca can be an emotional and scary experience because we're not used to that level of vulnerability and connection with ourselves. Therefore, we need people who will be honest with us about what to expect and the potential concerns surrounding the experience. We wouldn't want to interact with someone who sounds like a salesperson or is in any way insincere. Places that are clear about their screening process, and that have a good screening process in the first place, that conduct interviews with participants before and after the ceremony, and who have been referred to by people you can trust, are the best choices. Preparing yourself for the ceremony. You need to be prepared for the ceremony to benefit from it and reduce the chances of anything untoward. Most of the time, there is nothing to worry about regarding these ceremonies. However, this is the set part of the experience. Your own prior life experiences, your social conditioning, and even your physical and psychological state during or before the ceremony will affect how your ceremony plays out for you. In many indigenous communities, the preparation done by shamans before their first, or each, ceremony is incredibly intense. Since most of those sessions are conducted to commune with the divine, the preparation for them is taken seriously. The word traditionally used to describe the preparation process is dieta. I like to think about this period as a cleansing of our body, mind, and soul. We cleanse and prepare our vessel so that the spirit of ayahuasca has a beautiful place to dance and play. The importance of dieta. In Spanish, dieta refers to diet. However, when we speak of this word in the context of experiences with the sacred vine, it becomes broader in scope. Dieta refers to any physical, social, or psychological preparation you must make to commune properly with the plant. In the Amazon basin, this doesn't just refer to experiences with ayahuasca, but also deals with healing, consultations, divinations, and even hunting. Whenever the human being comes into close contact with the plant world, which is considered sacred and intelligent, dietas are used to facilitate the experience and to show our reverence toward the unseen world. In traditional societies, plants are considered a part of our lives. While this differs from Western ones, there are good reasons to follow many of the instructions that form a part of these preparations. Shamans who have been practicing these rituals in the Amazon are traditionally made to isolate themselves as part of a dieta. They can spend days, weeks, or even months in the deep Amazonian jungles, living in a spare cabin and eating foods that have symbolic significance to the ritual. These usually include fresh fish and animals found in the jungle, cassava and plantain. There are some peculiarities about where the ritual is held, but sex and alcohol consumption is strictly prohibited almost everywhere. In the Western world, there is usually a much longer list of things to avoid, and we will go into the reasons for that shortly. However, some might find these restrictions extreme and unnecessary. Whenever we have a profoundly therapeutic or mystical experience, we connect with energies that either don't exist on this plane or are buried deep within us. These subtle energies lie behind a thin veil inside ourselves, and the dieta helps us prepare for a deeper connection to this part of our individuality. If you are otherwise healthy, physically and psychologically, ignoring the dieta will only create a few problems. However, I recommend you stick to the dieta and prepare for the sacred ceremony. If you decide not to follow the dieta, you will have an uncomfortable experience physically, especially in terms of vomiting. And those toxins left inside your container might not mix well with grandmother ayahuasca. Ceremony begins when you sign up for a retreat and lasts for weeks after you drink the brew. It is a commitment of several weeks. The point of ceremony is to have a transformational experience, which requires sacrifice and preparation. When our bodies are toxic, it becomes almost impossible for us to connect with those subtle energies. This is why we spend most days feeling numb to everything around us. While the vine helps us get closer to these energies, we must ensure we act as a clean vessel for them. There are instances where people go through extreme purging before participating in these sessions. For example, in Peru, some ceremonies begin with a huancahui purge, where a tonic made by the huancahui plant is consumed. The aim is to ensure you are as receptive as possible to these energies before you begin. What happens if you ignore these guidelines? Most probably, you will be spending a better part of the ceremony itself cleansing your energies. This could mean feelings of nausea, discomfort, diarrhea, and vomiting during the sessions. If you come prepared, you will likely find connecting to these sacred energies much more accessible. Above all, following the dieta shows a deep reverence and respect for the spirit of Ayahuasca, and she will respond in kind when the two of you meet in the ceremony room. These dietas are supposed to have a few benefits for all participants. They help the body heal itself. Whatever we put our bodies through profoundly impacts our overall health and spiritual disposition. During this period of abstinence, our body begins to listen to its signals, which might have been lost. It learns to take care of itself and treat itself like a pure and sacred thing. Not only do they help in preparation for these experiences, but they also help us recover quickly after the ceremonies. Since these sessions leave us emotionally, mentally, and physically vulnerable to many energies, good and bad, we need protection to help us reintegrate safely. Dietas can help us do that. This is an excellent first step if you're taking part in this ceremony to start making changes in your own life. After all, as difficult as it might seem in the beginning, these preparations inculcate a sense of discipline in us. We learn to follow the rules for a higher purpose, and might even stick to some of the changes we observe in our lifestyle. In any case, these dietas help purify our consciousness, which can help us become more spiritually inclined, even beyond the ceremonies. For those who seek an authentic experience, these dietas are not restrictions, but assurances that we will have unique encounters. Another important reason we should follow the dietas mentioned here is that the Western diet and lifestyle are very different from the indigenous one. Since the indigenous people live in close communication with nature and mostly eat unprocessed food, their bodies and minds are already attuned to a plant-based life. On the other hand, the Western diet consists mostly of refined and processed food, an excessive intake of alcohol, and the presence of other preservatives and additives. The same goes for the different kinds of drugs, both legal and illegal, that are taken regularly. Some of these medications are life-saving and necessary, but even they might have certain adverse effects when combined with psychoactive substances like ayahuasca. Many traditional guidelines won't apply to us or would be too narrow in scope. Many indigenous shamans might not even be aware of the potentially dangerous drugs that must be avoided before the ceremony. Therefore, we need to make considerations for them in our preparations. There are three main areas of focus when it comes to dieta: food and dietary choices, abstinence from stimulating substances and experiences, and avoiding medical contraindications or side effects. Dietary guidelines. First, we will go over the foods that you need to avoid. While the guidelines differ slightly based on the retreat, there are a few common considerations. For one, you should avoid highly processed and refined foods as much as possible. This includes junk foods, foods and drinks that are extremely high in sugar, salt, and unhealthy fats, and even those that are incredibly spicy. Regarding meats, pork, and most red meats are supposed to be a no-no almost everywhere. The best diet you can follow before this experience includes whole foods and is plant-based. Foods that occur naturally are the ones our body agrees with the most. Some of these foods, especially fruits and green leafy vegetables, will also help kickstart your metabolism, which could mean increased bowel movements. This effect will be compounded if you're not used to such a diet in your daily life. Don't worry. This is a good thing, and an indication that your body has started its cleansing process. Even otherwise healthy foods like garlic, onions, different kinds of chilies, spices, food high in citric acids, and fermented foods are best avoided during this period. This is because, while eating clean and nutrient-dense foods is essential, it's equally important not to have foods that stimulate our senses. According to the shamanic teachings, spicy foods tend to have a cutipado effect on our senses. Roughly speaking, it means bewitched, which could affect the energies we're trying to channel through the vine. These foods are said to block or interfere with the channels we use to communicate with higher energies. In a more physical sense, these foods can cause unpleasant sensations if they come out during the ceremony. Think of this in terms of burning sensations, sickly feelings, and even an excessively sticky and sweet composition of the substances that come from us. We want any purging experience that does occur to be as pleasant, or the least unpleasant, as possible. Tyramine and MAOIs. We should remember that the ayahuasca vine inhibits monoamine oxidase formation in our bodies, which is why we can experience its psychoactive properties. These MAOIs cannot process tyramine, which is naturally present in many foods. When tyramine is not broken down, it can lead to unpleasant sensations, including headaches, increased blood pressure, or nausea that does not lead to vomiting. While these sensations are not harmful or threatening, they might lead to a suboptimal experience. This is why you should avoid food that contains tyramine, such as red meat, aged cheeses like cheddar and parmesan, pork, peanuts in excessive amounts, fermented foods like yogurt, kimchi, sauerkraut, fermented tofu, or soy sauce. Artificial sweeteners like aspartame, alcohol, chocolate in excessive amounts, nutritional supplements such as protein powders. One thing to remember is that you might come across warnings regarding food interactions with MAOIs. While pharmaceutical MAOIs can cause extreme situations, including death, when taken with tyramine-rich products, this is not the case with ayahuasca. The effects of ayahuasca are reversible and short-lived, which is why there are no recorded fatalities from these interactions. However, it doesn't hurt to err on the side of caution. When it comes to animal products in general, you should keep some things in mind. For one, most traditional ceremonies allow the consumption of chicken. However, these are usually free-range and locally found species. They are raised on farms or caught in the jungles. In contrast, most of the non-vegetarian food we consume comes from facilities where the animals aren't treated well, are kept in miserable conditions, and are pumped with different chemicals. Not only does this make them physically unhealthy for consumption, but it also makes them spiritually unfit. When we talk about food, or any form of consumption related to this ceremony, we want our energy to be as pure as possible. Thus, we're likely consuming the energy of an unhappy animal treated with cruelty. This is why it makes sense to be conscious about what you eat and where it comes from. So, what should you be eating before the ceremony? You should eat whole, unprocessed grains such as wild or brown rice, quinoa, and oatmeal. At the same time, you should eat fresh fruits and vegetables and legumes like green peas, lentils, and other pulses. You should avoid overripe fruits as well. In general, try to eat home-cooked vegetarian meals that use small amounts of oil, such as olive oil or coconut oil, salt, sugar, and spices. Eat light plant-based meals on the day of the ceremony. While you should drink adequate amounts of water or herbal teas, it's best not to observe a strict juice fast on or before the ceremony. For one, most juices are incredibly high in sugar, and also eschew the benefits that come with the dietary fiber found in whole fruits and vegetables. Second, while eating light is recommended, not having solid foods can work against you. An ayahuasca experience is a physically, emotionally, and mentally challenging experience. You might be in for one of your life's most energetically intense periods. Therefore, healthy foods will give you the energy to handle whatever comes your way later. Most people advise that your last meal should be taken at least 4 hours before the actual ceremony to give it time to digest. I usually stop eating around noon on the day of the ceremony, and I might have a little fruit in the early afternoon if I need more sustenance. Avoiding stimulation in all forms. This part of your preparation focuses on spiritual cleansing in all forms. Traditionally, when shamans would go to the jungles, they would seek isolation to be alone with their thoughts and away from unnecessary distractions. Even in villages, which were usually close-knit communities, the days before the ritual would require people to stay inside their houses, minimize the number of interactions they had with others, and refrain from wasting their energy on idle gossip. The modern world that we live in is stimulating in far more ways than before. On a normal day, we find ourselves inundated with numerous signals that try to engage our senses. If we want to watch something, we have a wide range of streaming services available. The same goes for choices in food, travel, and clothing. While we have more choices now, that doesn't necessarily mean we can make better decisions, or our lives are more fulfilling. Most of us have to deal with sensory overload, which occurs when too much random information is thrown our way. Our brain gets so overwhelmed with all this that it tends to shut down. Our ancestors knew their fight or flight response would help them avoid danger and protect themselves and their families. For us, this has become a problem. When our bodies and minds are continuously stimulated, we cannot relax and may have problems functioning properly. For example, if we're always stressed or in panic mode, we always feel tired. This works even when the stimulation makes us happy. If we're constantly chasing highs through drugs, sex, or alcohol, our minds do not get a chance to allow our actual thoughts and feelings to meet us. We don't spend our time self-reflecting or understanding what we truly need. Most of these highs come from wants rather than needs. Now imagine if you were in this state before your ayahuasca experience. Chances are, you will neither have enough energy to participate fully, nor act as the blank slate that these energies need to write, or rewrite, your narrative. Avoid sexual stimulation. Most cultures see sex as a powerful exchange of energies between two people. Whether in a long-term relationship or having casual sex with a stranger, a sexual encounter leaves a mark on each of you. Of course, some of these exchanges are more powerful than others, but all of them leave an impact on us. Now, when we're participating in an energetically intense ceremony, the energy of our recent sexual encounters will affect and be affected by these energies. This might mean that you have experiences or visions that feature your sexual partners, or you might begin to feel more energetically linked with them than before. Not only can this be extremely overwhelming, but it might also confuse you. Whether we like it or not, we choose partners based on energetic reasons as much as physical and superficial ones. We might think we are making rational decisions, but often we're responding to their aura. If their aura becomes too intense during the experience, we might get entangled, mentally, emotionally, or physically, with people who weren't meant to have such a profound effect on our lives. Other than that, we might even find our energy reserves depleted when we need them during the ceremony. Some people believe that sex takes away from the energy needed for creative endeavors. Thus, it's recommended to abstain from sex or ejaculation for at least 3 days before the ceremony. Avoid alcohol, weed, and caffeine. Alcohol, weed, and caffeine all are very strong stimulants. Hence, we should avoid them if we want an unadulterated experience. In some traditional societies, people are given a mix of marijuana, ayahuasca, or other plants. While there might be some reasons for this, and it might work in certain conditions, there is merit in consuming ayahuasca without the effect of anything else. I would avoid any teacher who uses this combination. If nothing else, you would probably want to understand how this vine can help you in your journey ahead. If there are other psychoactive plants in the mix, you might not understand what is causing you to have this particular experience. Alcohol and caffeine cause havoc on your body when it is in the middle of a purge, and ayahuasca will not mix well with these substances. If you can't remove these stimulants during your dieta, I suggest you consider waiting for a moment when you have more control over your dependencies. Another thing to keep in mind is the afterglow. Usually an afterglow is the feeling of bliss or oneness with the world you enjoy after your psychedelic experience. We would understandably want to prolong this sensation for as long as possible. When we consume alcohol or other stimulants too close to the ceremony, we tend to experience a much shorter afterglow than we would like. I also recommend continuing your dieta for 1 week after your ceremony. Ayahuasca will continue to work its magic if you leave your vessel clean after the ceremony. At the very least, you should stop consuming alcohol and caffeine 3 days before the ceremony. However, it is advisable to do so 2 weeks before the session. If you are overly dependent on alcohol or your morning caffeine shot, the sooner you wean yourself off of it, the better. You'll likely have a few difficult days and face withdrawal symptoms. Therefore, give your body enough time to recover before the ceremony. I remove alcohol and caffeine 2 weeks before the ceremony. This allows the body to recover properly from any withdrawals. During the week leading up to the ceremony, I fine-tune my body, remove food stimulants, and spend as much time alone as possible. Being alone is a fantastic way to prepare yourself leading up to the ceremony, and can help you anchor yourself to Pachamama and the plant kingdom before meeting Grandmother Ayahuasca. Digital detox. A digital detox might be the hardest thing to do for most of us. We spend most of our days glued to our devices, television screens, laptops, or mobile phones. Admittedly, this will take more time than expected. However, minimizing our dependence on these before the ceremony is extremely important. Not only do they distract us, but they also affect our mental health. While the blue light that is emanated from your screens has a negative effect on your sleep patterns, it can also cause your eyesight to weaken. Most importantly, the way we use our screens has a huge impact on our lives. Most of us spend a lot of time on social media. This gives rise to feelings of inadequacy, jealousy, or general discontent. Not only that, but we spend way too much time engaging with news that can upset us and make us feel hopeless. Our devices provide an alternate world to escape, but this is sometimes a good thing. People who spend too much time online need help adjusting to the real world. Second, people immersed in the virtual world, or even in majorly practical concerns in the real world, usually have trouble sitting alone with their thoughts. When we partake in a mystical ceremony in such a state, there's a good chance that we won't get much out of it. We might become more frazzled when suddenly faced with these otherworldly energies. How do you begin your digital detox? Start with things you're not overly attached to, and go on to those that are tough to do away with. For example, you might find yourself sitting in front of the television for no reason other than being bored or distracted. Since there's nothing to look forward to, you can minimize your consumption relatively easily. Keep your phone away from you while sleeping. If you are working, try putting your phone on silent or removing it from your room. You can minimize your use of digital screens before bedtime. Even if you stop using your phone or tablet 1 hour before sleeping, you will notice a significant shift in your mental and physical health. Blue light from screens influences your natural circadian rhythms. Taking a break from screens leads to better sleeping preparation. You can do this by replacing your current habit with a reading one. If you choose to read even 10 pages before bed, actual pages in a physical book, you will have less use for your phone. If you need help, you can always walk outside or talk to your family instead of staring at a phone before you sleep. The last, but probably most difficult, aspect of this detox has to do with your social media engagement. If deleting your social media apps is too extreme, you can temporarily try deactivating your profile. If not, the least you can do is reduce the number of times you visit your profile or others. Resist the urge to interact with people or events virtually. Instead, try to spend some time with yourself. This has benefits beyond the actual ceremony. Most experts agree that people who consume less social media and are not addicted to their digital devices are usually happier and more content. For further reading on this subject, check out Cal Newport's book, digital minimalism, choosing a focused life in a noisy world, which offers some great research and advice on reducing digital behavior in our lives. His main premise is that we should be more mindful and intentional when engaging with technology. Avoiding side effects and contraindications. This is the most crucial guideline for anyone on any kind of medication. Contraindications refer to certain conditions where it's advisable not to take a particular medicine or treatment. In other words, while these medications are valuable and necessary for you, they will potentially cause harm when taken alongside ayahuasca. Even if you use other substances or supplements, you should pay special attention to this list. This is because most supplements are not regulated with the same rigor as drugs and medicines. The most important thing here is that even well-intentioned shamans might not know the medications you're on and cannot give qualified advice on what to avoid and why. The other thing is that many of these medications need regularity when you are on prescription. Most medicines can be avoided for some time, but some cannot. Therefore, one of the first things to consider is whether you can temporarily stop your medication. While many retreats are becoming more alert to these conditions, the responsibility primarily lies with you. Here are some of the major concerns around medications. Selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs. Most antidepressants are SSRIs, and in any mood enhancers or migraine medications that affect our serotonin levels can have an adverse effect on us when taken in combination with ayahuasca. Specifically, there is a risk of serotonin syndrome, which is extremely dangerous. When two or more drugs interact, there is an increase in the serotonin levels in our bodies. When serotonin levels are normal, it helps properly function our brains and nerve cells. This is why it directly impacts our moods and sleep cycles. However, too much of it can cause a wide range of symptoms, from relatively mild ones like shivering, headache, diarrhea, insomnia, and elevated blood pressure, to severe ones like high fever, tremors, seizures, unconsciousness, and an irregular heartbeat. In some extreme cases, it can also cause death. You have a chance of contracting this syndrome when you increase the dosage of your regular drugs or combine one with another, as in this case. This is why most retreats ask you to stop taking these medicines as much as 6 weeks in advance. However, you also need to consider if that is possible. Never alter your dosage without consulting your doctor, and follow their advice if they believe you should not stop taking these medications, even for a short period. MAOIs. Pharmaceutical MAOIs can harm our health if taken in conjunction with ayahuasca, which is already an inhibitor. Some of how this reaction could affect us include cardiovascular diseases, extreme hypertension, cerebrovascular diseases, frequent headaches, and severe liver and kidney impairment cases. Plant-based and other decoctions. As discussed earlier, there are many reasons to avoid mixing different plant-based decoctions or other natural mixtures without supervision or in a careless manner. While some of these might not cause any harmful effects, some need to come with warnings. For example, there is a practice of smoking the secretions of Bufo alvarius, commonly known as the Sonoran desert toad, along with ayahuasca. While some might believe this causes more intense experiences, it comes at a significant cost. 2 compounds, bufotenin and 5-MeO-DMT, react adversely with the harmaline found in ayahuasca. There have been rare instances where this has caused death. Therefore, you should wait a few days after taking ayahuasca if you want to smoke this decoction. Another plant that one needs to be careful about is the toe, also known as brugmancia, or angel's trumpet. Some shamans are used to preparing the ayahuasca brews with toe. When the dosage is too much, it can lead to death. Even in cases where it's used for a long time, it can cause permanent mental impairment. This is why it's advisable always to ask what goes into your brew. And if you're not comfortable with something, don't try it. Herbal supplements. A few popular herbal supplements block ayahuasca in potentially dangerous ways. These include kava, kratom, St. John's wort, and ginkgo biloba. Again, many people might not be aware of how these supplements affect us when we take ayahuasca. So it's best to avoid taking them for a specified period before the ceremony. While common sense indicates that we don't take any other psychedelics, such as MDMA, psilocybin, or LSD during this time, it's also helpful to check if any other medication you're on can have an adverse effect during the ceremony. Also, this is important. If you cannot discontinue the medication you're taking currently, please postpone having your ayahuasca experience until things change. I completely understand the eagerness to try something that helps you deal with long-standing issues. In some cases, these include depression or chronic pain. However, the risks associated are high enough for you to consider everything before making this decision. If you have any doubts, please speak with the ayahuasca teacher or retreat facilitator well before the ceremony. Social preparation. We've discussed earlier that a dieta doesn't only prepare us physically, but also psychologically. Our social lives result from our interactions with people and their energies. As hard as we might try, it's difficult to keep ourselves detached from these energies. While there are many benefits of social interaction, there are enough things to be concerned about. For example, if we belong to a toxic workplace, we might be regularly affected by the politics and negative vibes surrounding us. Similarly, those energies might also affect us if we know someone prone to gossiping about others. According to the ancient shamanic beliefs, we're never truly alone. We have many guides, angels, and spirits around us. We're not always fully aware of these energies, even if we can sometimes sense them. These energies also affect our ties with the people around us, and even those no longer with us. Some of these energies are there to protect us, while others might be more toxic. Some of these might feed off our energy, depleting us in the process. While our physical relations affect our mental and emotional health, these relationships affect us energetically. The veil between the material and spiritual worlds becomes thinner during the ayahuasca ceremony. This means we are prone to absorbing these energies, which might enter our systems and create havoc. This is why isolation has always been a shaman's best friend before the ceremony. If possible, you should try to take some time off work before and after your session. During this time, you should get in touch with yourself. Even if it's impossible to cut yourself off from the world completely, you can minimize exposure to negative people and scenarios. If you find it impossible to detach from the negativity in your life, the least you can do is foster more positivity inside you. This will be challenging if you're in a difficult situation every day, but meditation, positive affirmations, and gratitude journaling can help you feel better. Psychological preparation. While different people have different experiences in ayahuasca ceremonies, most of us would agree that it is nothing like anything we've experienced before. This is why we prepare ourselves emotionally and psychologically for the journey. By preparation, I don't mean having specific expectations of the process. While we should have a general sense of why we're going through the process, we shouldn't be too keen on directing the how part of it. We'll discuss this more in our section on intention setting. We must ensure that our minds are ready to go through this experience. There are some things we can do to prepare. Gaining awareness through self-reflection and journaling. If you want a therapeutic experience through ayahuasca, it helps to gain some perspective on your life before going in. If any traumatic experiences have shaped you, or any incidents that have affected you deeply, chances are you've repressed those memories deep within you. This is a common defense mechanism employed by our ego so that we can continue to function in the world. However, during an ayahuasca experience, there's a good chance that these walls will come crashing down. Therefore, it's a good idea to start becoming more aware of yourself in the present. This would include taking into account your past. What we are today heavily depends on who we were yesterday. Self-reflection is not an easy journey. One thing you can do is start writing in a journal. This doesn't have to be an elaborate affair. All you need to do is start taking notes on everything that stands out during your day. For example, someday you might find yourself in an unusually bad mood and not understanding what is causing it, or you might notice that your energy levels get depleted when you think of something or visit a particular place. If you are prone to anxiety attacks, you might be unaware of some repetitive triggers in your life. When we journal, we find a way to structure our usually chaotic thoughts and feelings on a blank page. This simple act is intensely powerful in many ways. We see patterns emerge when we regularly note down our thoughts and reactions. Writing is powerful, not only because it can help us give voice to our ideas, but also because it can help give birth to new ones. You might find different approaches that work for you, or begin understanding the impact a particular incident has had on you. A journal makes you feel less lonely on this path. As I said earlier, self-reflection is a challenging process, and most of us want to avoid doing the work for as long as we can. This means that you might find yourself alone on this journey, especially if your friends or family are going through a different phase of their lives. If you have a therapist, you can engage with them on these issues. You can ask for help becoming more self-aware, which should already be a part of your therapy, and look for more tools to help you get there. Even if you aren't already in therapy, you might still find talking to your journal extremely calming. If you have a friend or a family member with whom you can talk about your experiences, behavior patterns, or other issues, try to start a conversation with them. You don't need to mention your intentions of taking ayahuasca unless you trust them completely, but you can still ask them for guidance on this journey within yourself. While you do this, keeping your judgment out of it is essential. You might feel tempted to feel guilt, shame, or anger at yourself. This isn't a means to amplify your self-loathing tendencies, but rather an opportunity to give yourself the kindness and grace needed to do challenging inner work. Gratitude while journaling is a great place to start. What are 3 things you are grateful for today? Next, you might review your day yesterday. Look for something positive, and write down what it was and how it made you feel. Next, consider what you did that you felt you could have done better, and jot down a few ideas for how you might have behaved differently. Keeping things simple is the best way to journal. Sometimes I'll just put the date, draw something like a happy face, and write a few key words of gratitude. All gratitude is deposited in a universal vault of goodness that elevates humanity. You will find that contributing to that vault in your life will also elevate you. Keeping a dream journal. Most of our deep-seated issues and traumas are rooted in the subconscious. A popular term that most healers and therapists now use is the inner child. People think of this as a separate entity, a part of our subconscious that records all our deepest childhood fears and aspirations. This inner child has undergone many trials and tribulations, and is generally ignored by the adult version of ourselves. This, too, is an act of protection. However, there are certain times when the inner child is active. A spiritual journey is one of them. If you're undergoing a spiritual awakening, you will likely meet your inner child along the path. They will guide you toward the wounds you need to heal and the opportunities for joy and love that await you. A child, after all, is both innocent and wise. They believe in the goodness of people and the limitlessness of possibilities, but they're also attuned to energies we've closed ourselves off from. This is why our inner child usually carries a lot of trauma, and spending time on healing this inner child will bring us closer to the life we're meant to live. The other time when your subconscious becomes active is when you sleep. During this time, your subconscious mind tries to communicate with you through dreams. Admittedly, we forget most of them when we wake up, and not all are significant to us. However, there is enough material there to help us understand ourselves better. Some people try to practice lucid dreaming, in which they become aware that they're dreaming. In other words, they're still in a dream state and conscious of their dreams. This is extremely helpful when we have trouble remembering our dreams, as most of us do. And when we want to get ideas about ourselves through our subconscious mind. Think of it as a psychedelic-free, mind-bending experience. While lucid dreaming is powerful, there are a few things to remember. This isn't an accessible state, and takes a lot of time and practice. You probably cannot access this state within a few days or weeks. 2. Since this experience works on blurring the lines between your dream state and awake mind, it can cause complications for those who already suffer from mental health issues. It's also an elaborate practice we won't discuss in this book. However, what we can do is borrow an element from it. Usually, the first step most teachers recommend when initiating someone into a lucid dreaming practice is keeping a dream journal. In this journal, you begin to note down any dreams or fragments you might remember after waking up. Initially, you might not have much to go on. Slowly, however, your mind will be conditioned to allow you to make more elaborate notes. These notes might give you some idea of the issues you want to address during the ceremony. Spending time in nature. How we live in this world regularly keeps us disconnected from nature. Even though everything we have, all that is essential and life-affirming, is a gift of nature, most of us have forgotten this sacred relationship. Most of us have become exploitative in our behavior toward nature. We can already see the effect of this on our environment and our lives. This disconnect can seem even more intense when we enter into a relationship with one of the most sacred plants we know. Ayahuasca is one of the great pillars of plant medicine, and is the mother of all medicines in the rainforest. Many people like to associate this plant with divine feminine energy, giving it the respect it deserves. When we think of Mother Nature, we know that we're in the presence of a nurturing, intelligent, and intuitive force. It's also incredibly playful and joyful, so we get a serotonin and oxytocin boost when we spend time with it. One of the reasons that the knowledge of this brew has been a closely guarded secret for a long time is that the ayahuasqueros believe that you need to be worthy of the vine. This includes people who work with the vine and those who receive its grace. That is why people say you might experience a calling when it's time to enter into communion with Mother Ayahuasca. Even if you weren't going to an ayahuasca ceremony, spending more time in nature has far too many benefits for you to resist. You can build this relationship slowly and leisurely. If you're not used to spending time outdoors, you can try to spend some time walking on grass, especially in the morning. This small act can help reset your mind and give you a sense of positivity going forward with your day. If you're lucky enough to have a park or nature trail close by, take advantage of it and try to visit it as regularly as possible. My choice is to commune with the ocean. I'm so grateful to have a deep relationship with the magical properties of water. I encourage you to explore long walks along the waterways and dips into the water if you live near a body of water. You can also attune your senses to the different sounds and sights that nature bestows on you. How many of you have used an app that stimulates or captures sounds of nature, usually in the form of gently falling rain, ocean waves, or birds chirping in trees? Why not give the real thing a try? While these sounds are less predictable, that is where their true beauty lies. Another thing that you can do is use your sense of touch and smell when in nature. You should exercise some caution here, especially because not every plant is made for touch, and can be toxic or harmful in other ways. That being said, you can always gently touch the bark of a tree or feel its leaves rustle against your fingers. These might seem romantic behaviors, but you are about to embark on a tryst with a powerful plant. Why not open yourself up to the many blessings it might bring? Yoga and mindful movement. Indeed, the ayahuasca experience is primarily mental and spiritual. However, the body is certainly a considerable part of it. We begin by understanding how different foods affect our physical and mental health during the ceremony. The same goes for exercise. If you're already physically active, try sticking to the routine as much as possible. Building your physical endurance might help you during and after this intense ceremony. Yoga is an ancient Hindu and Buddhist practice that can be beneficial in this regard. For one, yoga is not just a physical exercise. It draws strength from a deep understanding of the human body, mind, and spirit. Only when we understand how different energies impact our bodies can we truly appreciate the power of yoga. In many cultures, yoga and meditation go hand in hand, which should give you a clue about the interconnectedness between the two. It's also believed that in ancient Hindu societies, people training to be master meditators, those who meditated for long periods and accessed different metaphysical planes through the practice, also learned yoga. This gave them the physical strength and endurance needed to practice for long hours. The other thing that yoga helps with is discipline. Since the practice can be rigorous and precise, it helps us become more focused. This focus can help us even after the ceremony, when we need to recreate our lives. Remember that this journey is meant to start a new, hopefully lifelong one. Any relationships you form with yourself during this time will stay with you for the foreseeable future. If you aren't a vast exercise fan, try incorporating other forms of mindful movement into your schedule. If you're spending more time in nature, you should already be spending some time walking during the day. If you enjoy dancing, irrespective of whether you're good at it, dedicate some time to it each day. If nothing comes to mind, spend some time playing with friends or family. This burst of energy will serve you well during the ceremony. Setting intentions for your ceremony. Remember when we spoke about managing expectations regarding the ceremony? The thing is, you're participating in this ceremony for a reason. Even if you don't know exactly what you're looking for, you will usually sense that you want more from your life. While it's impossible to predict how a ceremony will go or where it will take you, you should try to get an idea of what you want from the session. This is where intention setting comes into play. Most of us seek a spiritual or therapeutic experience from the ceremony. However, this needs to be narrower for you to get actual results. If you want to start creating a new life for yourself, you need to know what elements of your life you want to change, what areas you want to grow in, and what keeps you from achieving the life you want. Your intentions are like signals to your subconscious mind, telling you to get ready for whatever you want. All the time you spend in self-reflection, understanding yourself better, and getting to know your strengths and weaknesses will eventually help you set your intentions for the ceremony. You can also use your journal for this. Note down the areas of your life you feel satisfied with, but also acknowledge where you would like to see more growth. Maybe there's a talent you have, but you are unsure whether you should pursue a career based on it. Maybe you enjoy doing something, but aren't sure if that's your life's purpose. Maybe you have experienced a few days or weeks of calm at a new place, but don't know if this is the right time to make a long-term move. We hold ourselves back from so much in our lives that we miss the good things right before us. Why not set an intention that helps you realize your blessings and live a happier life? Why not ask the spirits to show you where your true path lies? The same goes for negative experiences or traumas. If you have anger issues, spend some time thinking about where they arise from. If you cannot trust people easily, can you remember instances where you chose to and were betrayed? Are there any difficult emotions that you've been holding on to forever? This doesn't pertain simply to emotional or mental things. You might want to heal your relationship with money, or you might want to experience less fear when you try new things. Ask yourself how you usually move through this world. Is there something you would like to change? Our relationships are a massive part of our lives. They affect us deeply, and most decisions are based on them. Before participating in the ceremony, take some time to analyze your relationships. This could be your past relationships or your current ones. You might think that with past relationships, you don't have much control. However, our past relationships can often cause us a lot of pain. We might even have certain traits we've developed only because of our past experiences. In these situations, the best intention you can set is to forgive others for the pain they've caused you. At the same time, you might want to take accountability for how you've failed to show up for others. Our lives and current relationships will dramatically improve if we let go. When we look at our present relationships with people, we can invite them to discuss their issues with us. Even if we have good relations with those we care about, there's always space for improvement. Most of the time, we have blind spots regarding our roles in our connections with others. Letting others tell us what we need to work on can be very helpful. After this, you can set intentions that help you improve your relationships, form deeper connections, and move confidently through the world. It's important to remember that not everything about us has to change. There are things we want to keep intact, qualities that this world has no value for. What if you're struggling to remain optimistic in the face of recent events? What if you've been naturally trusting, but a bitter experience has left you paranoid? What if you want to feel less jaded about things that used to excite you? What if you know exactly what you want, but cannot take the first step? As you can see, these intentions are unique to you and can only be formed once you have clarity about yourself. This is where I will also talk about having extremely specific expectations for the session. If you go into the ceremony saying things like, "Tell me how to make more money," or "Show me the exact method of starting my venture," you will likely be disappointed. It's like chaining a free spirit and asking them to dance to your tunes. Once you know what you want to focus on, the next step is to let yourself go. I'm not saying that you won't receive answers or helpful insights. All I'm saying is that you don't get to decide how those answers come to you, or what they look like. This is something to remember whenever you're involved in a spiritual experience. Whether we deal with tarot, astrology, or any rituals that deal with divination, predicting the future, we tend to demand exact answers. The truth is, spirit does not always communicate with us directly. We need to give it space to express itself. Emotional support. Some of us might feel worried about going through such an intense experience alone. While these ceremonies are usually held in groups, it might help to have a few familiar faces to go through the sessions with. This is also why some people conduct these ceremonies in intimate settings, such as their homes. However, it's still essential to have a trained guide with you. You can attend the first few ceremonies with trusted friends and family members. Make sure that these people are willing to go, understand the situation and environment well, and trust you in the same way. This will give you the confidence needed to go through with the ceremony. However, be careful not to use these friendships as crutches that might prevent you from doing the hard work. Sometimes having a friend along can distract us from full expression, and in other moments, they can act as support when we need it. Like most things, this delicate dance requires an open heart, honesty, and mindfulness. Now that we're prepared for the ceremony, let's see how the first night of ayahuasca unfolds.